Welcome to Man Up. On this episode, we're going to have my good friend, Steve Becker, and we're going to discuss stepping outside the box.
Man Up is a series that challenges men to become strong, unique, discipled followers of Jesus. Hosts Troy Ferguson, Brent Zimmerman, and Victor Thomas. Welcome to Man Up.
In my experience as a Christian man and growing closer and closer in my walk with Christ, I've learned to be obedient in certain areas of my life. Obedience is always an ongoing issue or concern or something that you have to continue to walk out. When you're obedient to God, when God drops a vision into your heart, He also gives you provision. He will always provide to obedience that He has called you to do. I would encourage you, always be obedient to God. Always listen to God. He speaks through His Word. He speaks to you in your heart. Take time, meditate on His Word. Get in your quiet place with God. Ask God, what do you have for me, God? How can I be obedient to you? How can I help you build your kingdom? Put your eyes on God's kingdom. Be obedient to the Lord. Step out in faith and watch Him give you provision. We'll be right back with our guest today.
Impact Productions, a multi-layer technology company providing on-site, online, and in-studio video services. Contact Impact Productions to capture your story.
When it's time for a new roof, Champion Roofing is your best choice. We're a certified award-winning roofing contractor, meaning your roof is done right the first time. Call today.
Champion Roofing, we're the solution.
Welcome back to Man Up. Today we have my good friend Steve Becker here. We're going to talk about how the Lord has been using you. So Steve, tell us some things. One of the things that you do, you work a full-time job, and you always find a way to get God in the mix. You started a prayer group at work, is that correct?
Yes.
You and your friend Bill?
Bill.
Tell us about that. How did it start? How's it going?
Well, the Lord put it on our heart about 5 years ago, maybe a little over 5 years ago, to start a prayer group. And so it started with 4 of us.
Are we allowed to say where?
Why not?
The railroad.
The railroad.
Which, if anybody knows anything about the railroad, it's a tough
Yeah, it's
place
pretty
to
tough.
even work,
It's pretty
let
tough.
alone pray.
You gotta have
Sorry
thick,
about
gotta
that.
have thick skin.
You gotta have thick
But yeah, so it started with about 4 of us, and then it grew to about 12. And then as guys moved on to different jobs throughout the railroad, they took that and used it where they went, like to the new job. So one guy broke off and he started a Bible study.
Wow.
Doing break, and then one guy ended up going to second trick. So now there's a prayer group on second trick, first trick, and a Bible study.
That's awesome.
So,
All because you were obedient.
well, because God asked me to do it.
Did He ask you to do it?
He asked me to do it.
How did He do that? Explain the process of that, because I like to hear when people say, hey, God told me to do this, or I sensed God to do that. Explain what that felt like or what direction that was.
Well, it started actually, I just felt God had me pray for somebody. Like I never prayed for anybody like to their face. I said, yeah, I'll pray for you, and I go to my prayer time and I'll lift them up to prayer, but I never prayed for somebody and laid hands on them. And the Lord had me do that at work. He's like, you're going to pray for somebody before you leave. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You're going to do it before you leave. No, I'm not. And I actually had a burning shield, and I'm using my torch. And he said, when you're done here, you go pray for this person. He actually gave me a name and everything. I'm like, I don't know this guy. Like, only in the passing. We pass, we say hi, but I don't know nothing about him. But I felt it so strong in my heart that when I get done, I turn my torch off, I lay it down, I flip my burning shield up, and I walked straight over to the guy. I said, I hope you don't mind me. Like, the Lord just told me I had to pray for you. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know nothing. I said, but I want to pray for you. You okay with that? And he said, yeah. And I did. And that was the first time I ever prayed for anybody.
Amen.
And I'm still to this day, I don't know what it was about, but I don't need to.
That's right.
Whatever's going on in his life, the Lord answered a prayer. The Lord's working on him. But it started with that, just being obedient to that one thing. And then he did. I just felt in my heart, you're going to start a prayer group, and you're you're going to use Bill McCauley, and you're going to use his weld booth. And at the time, I was working across the aisle from Bill, and I'd never seen him come out this one area of his workplace, never. We worked across me for months. And I never seen him come out this one. And there again, I'm working, and he says, you're gonna start a prayer group, you're gonna use Bill, and you're gonna use his welding booth. And I looked up, and he's standing there like just looking at me, right across the aisle. I'm like, all right, God, you got my attention. Like, this has got to be God.
Yeah.
It's got to be God. So there again, I stopped what I'm doing. I walked there. I said, Bill, you're going to think I'm crazy, but the Lord said, I'm supposed to use you. We're going to use your welding booth to start a prayer group. He said, all right, let's do it. Like, he didn't bat an eye. He didn't question nothing. He said, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it started with 4, and then it grew to about 12 guys. You know, we just gather in a circle and just pray over the shop. You know, pray for our supervisors, pray for our work, pray for safety. We pray over each other. It just, it's an amazing time. But we've seen lives change. We've seen families restored. One guy, his children being rebellious, which was causing him and his wife to struggle. And we prayed over his family and prayed over his family. And he came in and goes, we had family night over the weekend. Like, we all got, and then they started doing family things together. Like, God restored their family. It's amazing what you see, the power of prayer.
You know, I've heard some of this story before. You know, I want to transition. There's so much that we could hear about this, and maybe another time we'll have you on and talk about this. But you and Bill, in the foundation of this, launched into something that's just crazy when you think about it from a standpoint of who's equipped, who's trained, who's this. Talk a little bit about what God prompted you and Bill to do outside the country.
Wow. Yeah, there again, you know, Bill's just been so supportive when I feel God lead me or calling me to do something. Because I went to work one day, I said, Bill, I think the Lord's leading me to build an orphanage. Once again, didn't bat an eye, nothing. Never, like, he said, let's do it.
That's a good friend to
Yeah,
have. That's a good friend to have right there.
He says, if God put it on your heart, we're going to do it. And we did. We talked about it, we prayed about it. I talked to Pastor Jim about it. And Pastor Jim, you know, we set up a meeting. He said he thinks this is a God thing. And I got a hold of Peter over in Kenya. I got some prices and got all the details that I needed to sit down with Pastor Jim. And I did. I took a piece of paper to Pastor Jim and I said, here's all the details. We had the price of the land, the price of all the buildings, everything we needed. And number 4 on that list was, I need $50,000. That's what it costs to cover everything. And Pastor Jim reads over and lays it down and says, all right. He goes, get a hold of Peter, tell him we're going to do this. I'm like, hold on. Did you read number 4? I need $50,000. Where are we coming up with $50,000? You know? And he says, God's plan, God will provide. He goes, when do you want to start? And we met in, I want to say September. He goes, when do you want to start? I said, well, most people probably say like a year from now. I said, but realistically, I said, I'd like to break ground in March or April. He says, all right. He goes, we're going to launch this in January. He said, we're going to do this. We launched it in January.
Of what year? What year was that?
It was 2020. I think it was 2020. I think he put it on my heart in 2019. I think it was 2020 we launched it, or he put it on my heart in 2020. We launched it in 2020. I can't. It was right in that area, but we launched it in January. April. We came to church. It was Easter Sunday, April. So we came to church with 14,000. The church did an Easter offering. He said, whatever we bring in for the Easter offering, we're going to give to your project. He goes, I haven't done this in years. He goes, but this is what's going to happen. And so we came to church that morning with $14,000. We had 2 services because it was during COVID. We had one at 9 o'clock and one at 11 o'clock. So I came to the 9 o'clock service. He said, at the end of the second service, we're going to announce what we brought in for that day. So I stayed for the second service. Bill showed up. We're sitting in the back. At the end of the service, Pastor Jim says, Steve and Bill, come up front here. So he called us up on the stage. He handed me a microphone. He goes, I'm going to hold my phone up. He goes, I want you to tell the people what they brought in today for your orphanage. Mind you, we needed $50,000. We came to church that morning with $14,000. We brought in $36,126.
Wow.
That's God.
Yes.
That's God. When it's God's plan, He will provide. He provided $50,000 in 4 months. We was able to break ground in April, just like I asked. But God's every step of the way, God's provided. We started with 62 children. We built an orphanage. We built a girls' dormitory, a boys' dormitory. We built preschool through 8th grade and bought the property with $50,000.
Wow.
That's beautiful. You know, you talked about obedience, but let me ask you, how much of this stretched you beyond your comfort zone?
From day one, to be honest with you, because I never had a desire. I knew nothing about Africa. I never had a desire to go to Africa. I've never run any kind of organization like that. I can barely balance my checkbook. But yeah, for every step of the way. But I just felt that it was truly of God.
Right, for sure.
And He did. He walked me through it. I know I asked Troy a couple questions, but he was so busy. But even to create a website.
Right.
I created a website and had him look over it to make sure everything was good. But I created a website. I created spreadsheets to keep track of all the money's coming in and money's going out. Put all the children on the website to get them sponsored. Stuff that I've never done before in my life. God just showed me how to do it, and everything fell right into place. But to even leave the country and go over there for the first time, I was nervous to talk about it.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about. Continue to talk about how not only did God do this for the orphanage for the kids, but you and Bill and some other men from the church, some that go over, and the experiences that you have about the souls getting saved, baptized. Touch on that and the healings that you've seen over there when you prayed for people.
Yeah, every time we go over, we see people coming to salvation. We get to do baptisms. We just see God's hand all through this.
And the baby, tell them the story about the baby, the unborn child.
Yeah, we this last August when we were over there, there was a pregnant woman that come up, and we call anybody needs prayer. We say come forward, and we anoint them and pray over them, and we see people getting healed. But the one towards the end, the pregnant woman that come up, she's about 4 or 5 months pregnant, crying. Prior to her, because that was on a Sunday, and prior to that, she was. She said they did an ultrasound and there's no life in the baby. They actually scheduled her at another place to have the baby removed, and asked us to pray for her, and we did. And while we were praying, I said, "Place your hands on the baby," and I placed my hands over top of her. As we're praying, that baby started to kick. God brought that dead baby back to life.
Amazing.
Truly is. I mean, that's supernatural.
Yes.
That's God. Every step of the way.
Well, we're going to pause right there. Thank you for watching Man Up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, "If you can dream it, we can create it." They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
Next time on Man Up, we're going to have my friend Tyrell Barnes and talk about evangelism.
I guess narrow it down pretty much, I was just a self-righteous idolater. I believed in God, but I was my own God in my head. My God believed everything I believed and didn't believe everything I didn't believe, and it was essentially me, a God I was comfortable with, cozying up to, God with no sense of truth, justice, righteous, none of that. My wife, she was into witchcraft. I didn't really think anything of it.
All that and more next time on Man Up.
Welcome back to Man Up. We're here with my good friend, Steve Becker. We're going to continue to discuss what God has done in your life because you were obedient to Him. So you mentioned you guys raised $50,000 to start the orphanage. You did a few buildings over there. What has taken place after that since then?
The following year, God provided to build the rest of the classes, because I mentioned we built preschool through 8th grade, and as the kids were getting older, we realized that some of them were getting ready to start high school, and it was very expensive to send each one to high school. So we raised money. God provided for us to build a high school. 9th through 12th grade, with an extra building for laboratories for some of the curriculums that they needed for high school. And then we built another dormitory that housed another 150. So at that time, we was able to rescue another 100 off the street.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what that is. When you say, because I know the story, when you're rescuing kids off the street, talk about that.
They're literally homeless in Soweto, and in the video we'll have some pictures of Soweto. But Soweto's the slums. It's like the poorest area, and they're literally homeless, living in the streets, sleeping on cardboard boxes during the day and staying awake at night because it's so dangerous at night. A lot of the children are being raped and stuff at night, so they usually hide under street lights and stay awake at night because it's so dangerous. So they're literally living in the streets, starving, and we send a rescue team in to gather them up. We get them to the store. We get clothing for them, get them on a bus, and get them shipped to the orphanage.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, your initial reception over there, because you said this is your first time in Africa, and you have a brother, Peter, over there, right? Yes. How were you received initially, and what's it like when you go over now?
Well, the first time was 3 years ago. Our initial visit there was it was interesting. a lot of the children never seen white people before, so when we come rolling in, to introduce ourselves and just like we're amazed. We're amazed at how the children they're so outgoing and loving. Like they have nothing, but yet they're so happy. Mm-hmm. But when they seen us, some of the younger little ones, they run and cry, and we're like, what's wrong? And the adults are like, they've never seen white people. They're scared. They don't know what they expect. Right. But now I've been over there three times now, and it's just been amazing. Like the kids just hang on you, and you have like each kid hanging on a finger. So you get like 4 or 5 kids hanging on your hands, and they're hanging on your legs, just loving on you. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
And there was a recent building put together as well, is that correct?
There was, just this year.
Wow.
Just this year we built a church.
Wow.
That it holds about 400 people. We got to see that in August when we went over, and we got to share the word of God out of that church.
So how many kids in total right now have you rescued and given shelter to?
203.
203.
Wow.
203.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Now, one of the things that you do that you didn't talk about, you use a sponsorship program to help fund this. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I told you I created a website, and we have each child's picture on the website with a little bio about each child. And then underneath that, there's a sponsor button. So if they're not marked sponsored, you can go in, hit the sponsor button, and fill out an application. And then it'll take you also to the church website where you can sponsor a child for $25 a month. And all that money, 100% of that money goes to the orphanage.
That's beautiful.
But that's what we have. We have 10 teachers on staff. We have 2 cooks. We have a hired hand that helps take care of the livestock, stuff like that. But that's what that money goes to pay all the overhead and buy food that we can't grow on the property we have, because we have an acre just for maize and herbs and stuff like that. So what we don't get from the livestock or the crops, we have to buy, like certain flours and sugars and stuff. So, but anything outside of the overhead for the teachers and stuff, we got to buy some food. But that's what all that money goes to. We have a budget that we got to meet each month, and that's through sponsorship.
And this is all started by just being obedient. What God has laid on your heart, the prayer meetings at church or at work, the orphanage, it was a step of obedience, a step of faith. So we like to open this up for discussion. Like, Vic, where have you seen where you've been obedient to God in your life, where you stepped out in faith and said, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I feel God has prompted me to do it. What are the fruits of that you've seen of being obedient to the Lord? And
there was a time in my life where I played professional basketball, went over Europe.
I've never heard that before.
and a lot of the athletes would come back the summertime to the U.S., but there was a time I stayed in the country. And at that time, my contract had run out, so I had to earn money. Now, like Steve, I had to learn how to market myself. I had to go into the schools and set up different basketball programs and bring, concessions and all that and show the schools how they could make money off of the concessions. And it was something I'd never done before. I'm 21 years of age in Europe and learning how, and that's a gift of God. He will, illuminate and he'll reveal talents inside of you that you never knew existed. And it's so rewarding. And when you see the impact that you have on different people, I could just reflect on how the impact with the kids and the joy that you brought. When I had kids and I'm teaching them, basketball skills and the joy that you see on their faces, it's so very rewarding to be able to do that and bring those things in. Maybe to a greater extent with you, because mine was sports, but to take kids off the street like that and the homeless and provide for them and just show them that you love them and you care about them, that is so very rewarding.
We were going to chat in this section about stepping out of our comfort zone or stepping out of the box. I'd like to reiterate, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, but I'd like to reiterate, this was accomplished by a couple guys working at the railroad who were just obedient.
Yes.
Obedient.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
It is.
What God has accomplished through his leadership, and I know he's humble and he's not going to say it's not about him, but his leadership to facilitate all these different things, the sponsorship program, all the things that need to take place, and communicating, raising finances,
The website.
and everything.
That's beautiful.
Is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
It truly is.
And sometimes people look at, well, what do I got? I don't got degrees in this. I don't got qualifications, and what can I do? I just want to say, when you're obedient, you can step out of the box, and when God puts a dream in your heart, He
Yes.
will provide the tools necessary. And I love to see what's going on. So what's next? We have a few minutes left. Talk about
You can go ahead and say it. If they can use me, God can use me. They can use anybody. But no,
I had it up here, but I'm going to.
I can see it. I can see it. No, for real. It has been absolutely amazing. What was your question?
I forget.
Stepping outside the
Stepping
box.
outside the box. Yeah, just the whole thing's
What's
been,
next? That's
What's next?
What's
Yeah.
next?
Sorry.
Actually, I'm hoping the one thing we need at the orphanage, and I have some people give me prices, is I'd like to put a small medical center on our property. Because right now we have 4 acres, and this is another God thing. When we bought the property to build the church, the property owner gave us a whole nother 1/4 acre, and it's perfect for a medical building. And if we could get Peter that oversees the orphanage had already talked to a doctor, said if we put up a medical building, he'll work out of there, and his money will come from serving the community, but he'll see our children for free.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
So not only they come off the street, they have housing, they're getting an education, they have food, clean water from the wells that we dug, and then now to have medical. I mean, that's not only are we to see the lives of the children being changed, but the way it's impacting the community around it. People are getting ministered to through the church, and just it's the whole thing. The lighthouse put a well outside the orphanage to serve the community. So God's moving mightily over there.
So when you step out in faith, in obedience, with God's vision, He always gives provision. He always sees it through. I've heard story after story after story, and it's amazing how He's using you, Steve, how He's using Bill McCauley, what He's doing halfway around the other side of the world. So thank you again for being on the
Thanks
show.
for having him.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for watching Man Up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Next time on Let's Talk About It, we will discuss baptism and dedication. And then we will have Nicole Rickaball join us on the show.
I ended up taking a couple pictures that I loved, and then I had one of a house I took as my husband was driving. And I was like, oh, I think that would be really cool. So I played around and had that as the cover for one of them, and then I just designed with different elements on Canva a different cover, and I was like, oh.
All this and more next time on Let's Talk About It.
When it's time for a new roof, Champion Roofing is your best choice. We're a certified award-winning roofing contractor, meaning your roof is done right the first time. Call today.
Champion Roofing, we're the solution.
Welcome back to Man Up, and we want to show you what God is doing in Kenya.
In 2020, Steve Becker and Bill McCauley had a dream to build an orphanage for a ministry in Kenya who rescues children from the streets of Soweto. In January of 2021, they launched the project for the Fruit of God Orphanage. By April, they reached the goal of $50,000 to build the orphanage and preliminary school. They started with 62 children, rescuing 10 to 20 at a time, and began the website lovinghandsofgod.com to raise awareness and funds. They soon outgrew the school, and they needed to expand, so they raised $54,000 in 4 months to build a high school. Then they added another dormitory to house 150 kids. As funds and faith continued, they saw the need for more children to be rescued. And in November of 2023, they rescued 100 more children from the streets, taking their total to 203 children. The sustainability of this vision is accomplished by monthly sponsorships of $25 per child, which covers shelter, food, water, and education. Most importantly, these kids are taught about Jesus Christ every day. 100% of all money raised goes toward the care of the children, and this is a 501c3, so all donations given are tax deductible. Sponsors are encouraged to engage with the children sponsored through email, Facebook, and sending letters and pictures to the children. It's been a delight to see so many photos and videos from the children to their sponsors and organizations who have helped make this possible. Consider joining the ministry in Kenya to take children off the streets and into a safe environment for $25 a month. There's no administration fees or personnel fees. Every person working in this ministry is a volunteer, so every penny can be spent on the children. You will be connected with a child from across the world who has been pulled out of the slums and into a safe place. Thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions, visit lovinghandsofgod.com for more details.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Man Up.
Made by Vogel is a father and son business that produces high-quality handmade wooden products such as cutting boards, bowls, bottle stoppers, and more. Products for sale can be found on their Etsy site or in downtown Altoona at the Clay Cup. You can't go wrong buying from Made by Vogel.
For generations, Dick's Home Care has been providing the best equipment and service for patient care at home. Breathe easier with oxygen from Dick's Home Care. Oxygen concentrators give you a continuous oxygen supply at home. Oxygen cylinders supply oxygen without power. And portable oxygen frees you to go. Dick's Home Care technicians will set your oxygen up and make sure you know how to use it. Call the leader in home medical equipment, Dick's Home Care.